During the summer of 2017, Geoff Marshall and Vicki Pipe travelled around Britain's railways on services that stopped at all 2,563 railway stations. Their extraordinary journey took 15 weeks, starting in Penzance on the 7th of May and finishing in Wick 3 months later on the 19th of August. Funded by an online Kickstarter campaign, they wanted to record the state of railways in Britain to see how they operated, who used them, to meet the staff, to explore the places that a train can take you to in Britain. A snapshot of the railways in 2017. Geoff and Vicki filmed the entire experience and most days published an online video that uncovered the stations, towns and people that they encountered along the way. And at the end of their journey, with all the stations ticked off, it was time to reflect on their travels. This is All the Stations.
I think that first day is so vivid. It'd been building up for such a long period of time.
We'd intended to start on the Monday. Day one should have been Monday the 8th of May.
And I remember coming out of the hotel that we were staying in Penzance.
We're in Penzance all weekend. Let's just do the St Ives branch on the Sunday. And so actually St Ives became a very easy, 6 or 7 stations on that first day.
And I remember that we were going to do a joint Facebook Live and Periscope on Twitter to announce that the project had started.
We're here to say we know when we're starting all the stations.
We tried to keep the day that we were launching under wraps. We hadn't publicly announced it to any of our followers.
We're going to get the 12:05 train there in a minute. Vicki is over there doing a Facebook Live.
What I remember is that I was doing the Facebook Live and I always let 10 seconds or so go to allow people to join in the Facebook Live.
I'm not sure if anyone has joined us yet. We'll give us a few seconds.
And then there was one point where Geoff came over because the idea was we were going to exchange phones and then I would be on Periscope.
Right. Only just announced that we've launched.
So, we're going up the St Ives branch. What's that? Yes, if you're on Facebook, I was just on Periscope and now I'm on Twitter. I was on Periscope and I've come to Facebook.
But when Geoff came to take the camera from me, I hadn't really got to explaining properly, so I felt a little bit of in a bit of a anxious state because I felt like I was garbling.
We're going up the St Ives branch.
Hello Twitter. We've passed over. So yes, we are already starting. We're here in Penzance. We're going up St Ives. It's a tiny branch. We're going to take a trip up to St Ives to see beautiful top 10 that it is rated in Europe's beaches.
We have officially left our first station to start our journey. 1 station down, 2,562 to go.
We're just leaving Leyland Saltings. On the way up, I think we're going to not stop at Leyland, but we're going to stop at it on the way back down. That's a request stop on the way back down.
Isn't it Leyland?
The land, day one, we're not even in Wales and we're having trouble with pronunciations.
Between the start and finish dates, the journey took 105 days, although only 78 were actual travel days when stations were ticked off, averaging 33 each time. But ticking off stations was arguably not the best thing about the trip. It was meeting the staff.
The best thing about the railways is the staff.
The staff that work on the railways are the best people.
Throughout the entire journey, we met an incredibly helpful staff.
Steve, stop doing your job and come and talk to us. we met the delightful Steve. He went, "Are you the All the Stations guys?" No, but can you just say, so apparently you've been chatting to some of your colleagues,
Yeah, that's right.
and some of your colleagues have sort of been admonishing us slightly in a kind of, well, they're not getting out at every stage, so they're not doing it properly.
You're cheating, basically.
But you've come to our defence, haven't you? by saying,
Yeah. You've convinced me. You've talked me around.
How did we convince you?
You convinced me by saying basically you've got lives to lead after this.
And so what we're doing is taking 3 months, and if we were to do it by getting out everywhere, it would take like a year.
At least.
There was a little bit of a deliberate ploy on our behalf, because we were aware that we were jumping onto a train very clearly with a video camera and a big microphone, and they'd give us a strange look. And we quite quickly learned within the first day or two that the way to diffuse a potential "what are you doing" filming situation was just go and talk to the staff. Why do you like trains, Steve?
But I like trains. I've been around the railways all my life. Class 37s are fantastic, brilliant locomotives. They drew me onto the railway. I've been on the railway 30 years. I don't think I've ever looked back. So basically, yeah, trains are my life, and that's that.
Love it. And what is it? Is it the smell or the sound of a 37?
It's the sound of the 37.
The sound of a 37.
It's the sound of the 37.
Later today, you're going to hear the sound of a 37.
Nice one.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
You've been brilliant.
Right,
You've been brilliant.
Thanks very much.
Have a great day.
Thanks a
Have a
lot.
great day.
See you
Have a great day.
later.
But what we discovered is that you should just do that anyway. And I would encourage people, when you get on a train, just to always say hello to your guard or conductor.
That man is Graham, so he's a legend.
But we've just met Neil, our driver, and he's got it on his tie. You can get Scott round with ties. Neil, I love you. Can I have your tie, please? Thumbs up. Hey, drink.
Cheers. Cheers, mate. Cheers. Enjoy the rest of your trip.
So much.
I'd like to say a special welcome to Geoff and Vicki, who are travelling around all the national rail stations in the country. Good luck to them today and for the rest of their journey.
We're the best. Thank you so much.
Good luck. Have a
Thank you
good
so
trip.
much.
Thank you so much.
Love this guy. Love this guy so much. Such a great guard. Thank you, my friend. You have days in the railway where time is genuinely on your side, but other days when it's not on your side. This is one of those days where it's not on your side.
You're so welcome. A very regal wave. Bye.
Sometimes I do that terrible thing of judging someone. I'd see someone from a distance and think, oh, they look a bit miserable. And then we'd say hello, and they turned out that they were lovely. So much.
A pleasure.
You were the best. You were the best. Look, only...
No, we've even got a light up sign here. You wouldn't believe it, would you? Yeah, I mean, the juxtaposition of nature and a light up sign.
Steve, what's your favourite memory of Geoff? He's got a valid ticket.
We bonded over the ticket.
Yeah,
that was
the moment.
But we spoke to lots of guards, lots of drivers, lots of platform staff, lots of station staff, all of who were so generous with their time, and also just like everyone else who was connecting with us on social media, giving us tips and advice about places to go and see.
Abercunnan. This is Paul. Look, Paul's going to quickly tell us how to pronounce it.
Abercunnan.
Thank you.
No problem.
Could you just come with us the whole week and be our translator? Arriva Wales, we'd like to employ Paul as a translator. That would be excellent.
We do have to mention Ian, the selfie king from Lancaster.
Special announcement. Customers at Lancaster Station, we have a team, all the stations team.
Ian is an absolute legend.
Okay, have we got a time for a selfie?
Yeah, because we got 10 minutes.
Okay.
We're not out to 12:26.
Crack on with it.
We got all the time there.
the train.
Here we go. That's it.
Ian clearly loves his job and the work that he does, and that just comes through. Nothing was too much trouble with every passenger, not just with us.
There were a few stations in Lancaster.
Okay.
We've got Lancaster Castle, which is this one.
Okay.
Lancaster Greener is just a bit further down the road where Sainsbury's is. That's the old station to Morecambe, and now it's all defunct. And it's been an honour. I've been here for 20 years now, and I love it.
You've worked at Lancaster for 20 years?
20 years.
Wow.
I'm one of the old hands.
People coming up and asking information, and he went above and beyond to help and support them. And you can follow him online and see all the selfies that he's taken with hundreds and hundreds of people.
12:26, Heysham Harbour, Northern Service. I'm going to press the plunger. Okay. Lock it up. Now the signalman, or the signaller, or the bobby knows we're ready for departure on platform 2.
Cool.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Jeff,
Ian.
all the best.
Thank you so much. You were great.
Good luck.
We better go.
And he also let me do a platform announcement.
Are we ready? After 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
The train now standing at platform 2 is the 1226 Tahitian Port.
Thank you.
Which was a complete highlight.
Tahitian Port.
It's a bit rainy. Be careful pointing your camera at the nuclear power station because the armed police might come out.
Again, he's going to switch the frame again. This time we're going to get a picture.
So if you ever go to Lancaster Station, you have to ask if Ian is working. He was an absolute star. What some people don't realise is a really, really important role on the railway is pest control.
I think this is it. Oh, this one here.
Press the button.
And the most famous pest control officer on the network has to be Felix, who works at Huddersfield Station. But the unique thing about Felix is that she is a cat.
This is Felix, the cat. And she is a very special member of staff here, is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. She runs the place.
She is extremely popular with all the passengers at Huddersfield.
This cat has more Facebook followers than we do.
Yeah.
How does a cat have more Facebook followers?
Well, I mean, because just look at her, she's gorgeous.
The wonderful staff at TPE sent us a message and said, let us know and we can arrange an interview with Felix.
So how long has Felix been at Huddersfield?
Well, she's 5, so I think since she was a kid.
And what sort of work does Felix do here at the station?
Well, obviously it gets rid of all the pests.
So she's very good at pest control. Amazing.
And she graced us with an interview. She took it completely in her stride. But you absolutely have to follow Felix. People love cats and people love railways, and if you bring those two things together, the epitome of that is Felix.
But if we're talking all the animals as to which was encountered the most, that would not fall to our feline friends.
Seagulls featured a lot our very first day in St Ives. Quite aggressive seagulls, actually. St Ives have little signs throughout the town warning you about the seagulls. Beware seagulls.
Geoff. We have to get this postcard. St Ives by train. Don't get run over, Geoff.
As they went about their travels, Geoff and Vicki spoke to the public, other passengers and railway staff to talk about their experience on the railways, but also managed to speak to particular people too, including on one bright sunny morning at Euston Station when they spoke to Sir Peter Hendy, the chairman of Network Rail.
Good morning, Sir Peter. Thank you again for joining us this morning. Our first question to you, as you know, we are travelling to all the stations in Great Britain. How many of the stations in Great Britain do you think you have been to?
Oh, crikey. I've been on most of the railway in most of Britain. North East is a bit weak, I think. Some of it was a long time ago. I haven't done everything, which is what you'll have done.
You very kindly sponsored all the stations, and we noticed that one of your adopted stations was Dalston Junction. Is there a story behind that?
Well, I was there when it was opened, so that was what was then the bit of the overground from Dalston to New Cross and New Cross Gate and on to Crystal Palace. and that was opened by Boris in 2008, I think.
So as the chairman for Network Rail, what do you believe the railways are for?
Well, that's a really good question. What the railway is for is to create economic growth, jobs and build houses. What it does is move people around, but there's a big difference, and what I do now in my old age is talk about what the railway is for, because it's very important that people realise it's a huge place in the society and economy of the Britain we live and work in.
What do you feel might be the things when you're travelling on trains in the future that will be easier? What do you think will become easier, and what might be the challenges? What might become harder as you're travelling around?
So, I mean, one of the things that is coming is there sometimes mostly is connectivity. So one of the advantages of travelling on a train is that you can work, though actually it's also quite fun to look out the window, which I like doing too. Still, even on journeys I do quite often. What's harder is that the railway is getting fuller. So actually the trains are getting longer and there'll be more trains, but they will be fuller, and I think that people have to adapt themselves to the fact that you will have somebody sitting next to you. But that's a good thing for the railway, because when I joined the transport industry 40 years ago, the whole place was in decline, and now it's not, and that's a much better challenge to face than it is closing things down and making things worse.
Wonderful. So Peter, thank you very much again for joining us this morning.
And I hope the rest of the trip goes well.
Thank you very much.
But railways aren't just for the commute, or those that love trains. They're there to take you to leisure destinations too.
So as well as being an adventure to explore Britain's railways, we also made a very conscious decision that we didn't want to just focus on railways every day, because the railways can take you to lots of interesting places, and we wanted to show that aspect of the network as well.
We are at Hinckley. We're on the train to Leicester, but we have to get it here so we can get the stopping service, otherwise this train would skip trains to Leicester.
We did a lot of research, and people sent in tips and information about places that we could go and explore in and around stations across the country.
It started in a place called Hinckley.
I have no idea, gotta come clean, I have no idea where Hinckley is. I've never heard of it as a town or a place in Britain.
And that led to the whole Vicki Explores section of the videos.
Vicki Explores. Sorry, should I say Vicki Explores?
Preston. Right, Preston, what have you got to offer? Preston, from the word priest, town or settlement, and there are certainly a lot of churches here in Preston, like this one. I don't know why this one's important, I need to check. This is St Walburge, and it has the tallest spire of a church that isn't a cathedral, a staggering 98 metres tall. And also the trains appear to run right next door.
So it just evolved. The sort of the mini sub-series of Vicki Explores, which we've now carried on, became a thing at Hinckley. So thank Hinckley for Vicki Explores.
All the stations rode on 622 trains in total, with just 17 being late or cancelled. That's 97% of trains that ran as they should. A lot of the problems, though, occurred in one specific period of time.
So there was this week in June where we had summer.
It's hot, man. One of the most tragic, but also slightly comical moments.
All Line Rovers aren't valid on Heathrow services.
It was when we were travelling in and around London.
We're going to go one stop on the express to 123, then one stop on the express to Terminal 4, then one stop on the express back to 123, then pick up the Connect to Hayes and Harlington.
And it was interesting to note that the day that the temperature hit like 30 degrees 4 days in a row were the 4 days where things broke every day.
Just across the platform at 123.
And it's the hottest day of the year.
And we rocked up at the station and there were no trains at all.
And well,
we could obviously tell there was some sort of issue along the line. We didn't know if it was a signal failure or if something else had happened. But we realised there was a lady further down the platform sort of dispensing advice. She wasn't in uniform. And so at first we just thought, oh, maybe she's just checking Twitter or something on her phone. But then we realised she was actually a member of staff, but she hadn't clocked on just yet. But she had access to some of the sort of staff forum, so she had more information than you can get on the public domain. So we went to speak to her and we said, so what's going on? Is there going to be a train? Is there not going to be a train? Is it a signal failure? And she said with a really straight face, no, a pigeon's exploded.
It's too hot. Oh Jesus, it's too hot.
And what had happened is a pigeon had landed on an overhead wire and somehow had been electrocuted, and in the process of exploding had caused some damage to the underside of a bridge, some masonry, and to ensure that it was safe for trains to continue to run underneath it, they had to momentarily pause the service so that engineers could go out and check it out and say yes, it was safe to cross. So pigeon scuppered our journey around London that day.
A little bit grumpy, but a pigeon landed. I'm angry at the pigeons. These things happen. We're on the Greenford branch. We've walked from Hanwell to Drayton Green. We're going to try and knock out the Greenford branch, which has so far eluded us. And then we've still got to struggle with the two Sudbury Harrows. And yeah, it's just starting to feel like a long day now. Even though we've had ice cream. Everything's broke. There's no two ways. There's so much going on now. I can't. It's hard to summarise. We're at West Ealing. The Greenford train has turned up, but now there's been a points failure at Greenford. He's delayed. Right now we're thinking of if any train stops, and we don't know if a train is going to stop into Paddington, and we got a Marylebone to knock out the two Sudburys.
This is due to an obstruction on the line.
Or we go to Waitrose.
Oh, we go to Waitrose.
Sample the delights of West Ealing.
Or we just buy some pins and sit in a pub somewhere.
Oh, that sounds good.
This is what sometimes happens. The railway sometimes, I'm not going bloody hell railway, but sometimes things happen and it just breaks.
The staff have been really helpful.
Our driver, GWR, Sven, the nicest man at GWR Help, if you're watching, Sven, he was so nice. Staff are usually brilliant. The weather, the hot weather hasn't helped. Oh, did we leave something behind? I told you he was nice.
Last one,
Thank you. My sunglasses.
I just put a thing on my Twitter saying meltdown. Even Marylebone is rammed. No one knows what's going on. They're saying it is running to make your way to boarding area A. That's where we're standing. But frankly, it's been a long day. We have things to do and we're heading off tomorrow. We're going to go home. I thought you were going to suddenly say something profound.
I'm too tired to say something profound.
I'd like to say we love the railways, but sometimes they don't always work. Today is one of those days where this afternoon it just hasn't worked.
I'm out.
Me too.
Travelling from place to place in different towns and cities all over Britain meant not staying at home in London, but in hotels.
So where did we stay every night? We stayed in a lot of Premier Inns. Have you got everything?
Is it me, or do all Premier Inn rooms just look like identical?
I literally don't know what city we're in right now.
Oh my, mainly because from a technical point of view, they have really good Wi-Fi. So we were uploading video clips every day. The initial plan had been to post back every day SD cards. And then I realised quite quickly that if you could pay for like a monthly, it was not a lot of money to pay for like a monthly pass for premium Wi-Fi. And we'd get in and instantly we'd put things on charge, slam the SD cards into the computer and start uploading it over the internet back to London to the video editors.
Also, like trying to get out of a Premier Inn is like a labyrinth in itself. They just look identical.
And I know that they're sort of the same, and you go in, the TV's always there and the bed's always there, but in a way, that familiarity, it felt like almost like sometimes you were going home.
Where are we going?
We're going to go to Gabowen and go up that line.
Okay. How are we getting there?
A man called Gareth is giving us a lift.
Even though you're in a different town, it was the same.
Who's Gareth?
I don't really know.
Where does he live?
I don't know.
What does he do?
I didn't ask him.
Why is he helping us?
It's just a random man of the internet. We're about to walk out and just find, hopefully, a nice man called Gareth.
Okay.
So when we get in the car, why didn't you ask all those questions?
I'm really hoping this man's Gareth.
He is. Hello, I'm also Lydia. How are you? Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Geoff, good to meet you.
I'd be Geoff.
Does he look like an internet nutter?
I don't know yet.
Should we vet him in the car?
Yeah.
Let's find out who Gareth is.
Where do you live, Gareth?
I live in a village called High Kinnerton, which is...
hang on, quick fire, next.
Yeah, oh, go on, right, okay.
What do you do?
I work as a freelance theatre production electrician, which means I do the lighting for shows.
Next.
That's very cool. Good choice, Geoff. Why are you helping us?
It just seemed like a really cool thing to do of a Sunday.
He passes my screening test.
Are you an internet nutter?
Oh, are you an internet nutter?
That's not for me to decide.
Getting lists from people between stations turned out to be key, as it saved time in making connections, often preventing doubling back. And people took to it by printing their own all the stations' taxi signs.
I can see a man with a sign. Everybody, meet Dan.
Morning.
Hang on, what?
You saw me already.
Is your car at the ready?
Yeah, we've got to go, haven't we?
This is very cute. Semaphore.
Premier Inn. Oh my goodness. We should do a new series next year called All the Premier Inns.
We made some pretty epic connections.
We did have a lot of moments where we didn't always make the connection that we planned to. Early on, one of the small failures was that a train ran late going into Newton Abbot.
We're approaching Newton Abbot. We were due in 4 minutes ago.
We had to change and come down to Paynton and reverse, and there was a bit of drama because I didn't think we were going to make or be on the train which would allow us to spend time at Dawlish.
It's going to be adjacent. We're coming in on one. What will be galling is if, as we arrived, it would. This is like doing Tube Challenge. Can you see it? Is it on the platform? That's our train. That's our train. It's a pacer, Vicki.
Yay!
Hold the pacer. Hold the pacer. Oh, it's moving! No, they let it go. We're literally, it's going, it's pulling out now. There it goes. Oh! No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I can see our train disappearing into the distance. That's really annoying.
So I felt like I was always making epic connections. I remember in Winchester, we had about 25 minutes to get from the station down to the cathedral. So I failed in Salisbury, but Winchester I'm trying again.
to see if I can get to Cathedral in time before we have to catch our train. We've got 20 minutes.
Often on Vicki Explores, I became so focused on trying to find whatever it was that I wanted to take a bit of footage of. The more I did it, the more I sort of stretched. So, okay, so wherever I am in 10 minutes, I have to turn back, because if it takes me 10 minutes to get this far, it's going to take me 10 minutes to get back, and that's all the time I've got. But the more I did it, the more I was determined to not be foiled. That's sort of the back of the cathedral, but okay, I think I might have 1 minute to go around the front, and then I really have to maybe even run. And then I realised, oh my god, I've only got like 8 minutes or something, whatever it was, to get back to the station, and I'm literally running up the hill. I've got Doc Marten boots on. I get back like with 30 seconds to spare before the train. Geoff is casually sitting on the platform going, oh yeah, it's delayed by 5 minutes. I'm like, you couldn't text me that, could you? He's like, oh no, sorry.
We decided to go with option 2, which involved Vicki running to go and get a shot. That's why you're sweaty. To get a shot of Winchester Cathedral, and she had to be back here to pick up a certain train, which valiantly you've done. But in the meantime, we've now switched to option 3, so you had 10 more minutes to come back and make it.
So my face didn't need to look like this.
Your face doesn't need to look like that at all.
Do you know what I've learned about Winchester Cathedral?
What have you learned about Winchester Cathedral?
It's amazing.
Okay.
And from the station you go downhill, but on the way back you come up.
Some connections between two separate stations were made with the help of a ride in a friend's car, or in some cases, a complete stranger's car.
So it was hard to vlog, as the word is, every day, because sometimes you're walking along and I am thinking, we need to get this shot or get that shot, or we need to edit this later, must get a shot of that, must get a cutaway. And I was impressed with myself that sometimes I would think that even in the heat of the moment. So there was just one moment on the whole of the trip where we sort of engineered a small thing to happen. And I'm glad that I did, because it worked out well.
There was a moment where we were walking between Thorn North and Thorn South station, and we thought it would take about 10 or 15 minutes.
So we're doing the walk between Thorn South and Thorn North.
But once we got there and we started to walk through the town, we were looking and checking Google Maps, we realised, oh, it's actually more like 20 or 25 minutes away.
Are we going to make it?
We think we're going to walk it about we've got 28 minutes to do a 26-minute walk.
Okay.
And as we're walking along discussing this, at the corner of a ride, this blue car just pulls up into the curb.
Hello? What?
Whereabouts are we going to?
Thorn. Who are you?
We'll give you a... My name's Matthew, I'm a subscriber.
To what?
To all the stations.
No, you're not.
We are.
Do you live in Thorn?
We live in Thorn.
And just pure coincidence, they just happened to be driving past. They drove past us, saw us, and then turned around to come back and say hello. And if they hadn't, then we wouldn't have made our train.
It goes bip bip, and the girl winds down the window. She goes, "Excuse me, are you Geoff and Vicki?" And we're like, "Yes." She goes, "Oh, we just saw you guys." And at that moment, so it was literally 5 seconds, I went, "Are you about to offer us a lift?" And they were like, "Yes." I went, "Brilliant. Okay, we'll have the lift, because we need to go to Thorn North." I said, "But it'll be so much better if we could capture that all on video. So could you just drive back 100 yards and come back again, and this time we'll have the camera rolling." So I admit, please forgive us, that the moment where the car pulls up and they go, "Are you Geoff and Vicki?" That was the second time that had happened, but only that 10 seconds. And then the minute I open the door and we get in and we go, "Hello, who are you?" That we didn't know who they were. That was all unscripted. That was as was.
You're genuinely driving past?
We were just driving home and I was like, I'm sure that's Geoff and Vicki.
That's amazing.
And I was like, I'm going to turn around and see if it is.
But yes, the initial moment when they pull up, we got them to do that again, but the rest of it was all real. But thanks, Matt and Louise.
This is not planned at all, whatsoever. Where were you headed?
We're going home. We're going home. Literally.
Because I don't think we'd have made the Thorn North train had they not have been driving past. And that was the brilliant thing. It was a genuine, random, we just saw you walking down the street, what are the chances moment of that happening.
It has 2 stations because it actually crosses over, so one side of the line goes on one side of the Humber River and the other side goes on the other side, so this station will take you to Hull and the other side will take you down to Cleethorpes.
Yeah.
So that's why it has 2 stations.
So that was just one of those in the right place at the right time moments. Yeah, sometimes luck just helped us on our way. The most useful old thing that is still in use on the network. On our first day, we witnessed the beauty that is the token exchange.
That's the staff working.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Instead of token block, to go down to St Ives, it's staff working, so the only train that can go down there, apart from to rescue the fell train, is a train that's got that.
It is literally a token, a physical object that gets given to the driver so that they know that they have right of way on that piece of line. And we saw tokens in various different forms. Some were wooden battens. The one that we saw at St Erth Station down in Cornwall was a wooden batten. That's all I can describe it as, and they believe it's the original token from when the railway first opened in the 19th century.
But the best bit is that we think that's the original one from like the 1870s.
No.
As far as I'm aware, all the bits on it are.
That's phenomenal. I feel like I should have white gloves on.
Oh, it gets chucked away. I think at one stage it probably had a key on the end of it.
Really? What would the key been for?
To interlock to the points, but now it's all interlocked with the signal box.
Okay. That's phenomenal. Thank you.
It's all right.
In other places, they tend to be sort of metal rings. They're quite large metal rings. And so you see signallers coming out of their boxes down the stairs, handing them over to drivers in what feels like the middle of nowhere. Another part that springs to mind is in Worcester Shrub Hill Station, where they have disc signalling. So we often think of semaphore signalling as being the arm semaphore signalling, but there's also a disc version of the semaphore, and at Worcester Shrub Hill it's in the middle of platform 1, I think it is, and it was designed because there was less room. It's on the platform, it's underneath the platform canopy, so no room for your arm semaphore signalling, so save space. It's a disc, and I believe it is the last working disc semaphore on the network.
It's a manual level crossing. I love it.
That's incredible.
There's not many left. How many times a day though does he come out and have to do that?
I know. I don't know why it's so brilliant, but just the idea that in a world where where everything is automated, where I can be on my phone and share everything with you guys, which is brilliant, that the sort of pleasure in doing something manually, I find that brilliant.
A man has to come out
and close the gates.
Close the gates.
Yeah.
It is a perfect little station, isn't it?
It's very quaint. But also there's lots of industry around, so it's sort of quaintness secreted into the modern world.
There were many things that surprised me about the railway network. I am a bit of a train nerd. I'd always loved trains. I live in London. I was born in London. I grew up in an area where trains are every 4, 5, 6, 10 minutes, and often at my local station I don't need to check a timetable. I can just rock up knowing that there'll be a train within 10 minutes. But what was even more surprising than that is that I'm used to like 4 or 8 carriage electric multiple units, and I'll complain at my local station if instead of there being an 8-car unit, there's a problem that day and they only send out 4 cars, and you're like, oh, everybody's crammed onto 4 cars. That's nothing compared to the fact when you get a single car 153 unit turn up and 100 people are all trying to squeeze into one car. I was genuinely a little bit surprised at major cities and conurbations. So Ipswich, for example, out to Felixstowe is a 1-car unit train.
Vicky, is it a pacer or a sprinter?
I don't know. I'm going to say sprinter.
It is a sprinter.
Yeah.
Surprise! I thought this would be a very quiet train. Maybe it's because it's 6 o'clock, end of the working day.
Yeah.
This tiny 1-car train to Felixstowe is very busy.
We might have to stand.
We might have to. That would be weird. Look how busy it is. That's crazy.
Going up to Lincoln through Market Rasen, it's a 1-car train. We were somewhere around the Bradford to Halifax area, and it was a 1-car unit train. I'm thinking, why aren't they running 2 or 3-car trains? They'd introduced a new shuttle from Salisbury down to Westbury, and it was a 1-car train.
Because it's commuter hour.
Yes, and half term.
Oh, when it's half term?
Yes.
If I was in charge, sometimes people say to me, what would you change? I would say, get rid of all the instances where there's a 1-car train and upgrade them to be 2 or 3-car trains. And I know it's not that simple because there's often not platform space or the rolling stock. But yes, when people say to me, oh, you're in London, you've got it easy, you can see what they mean when you turn up to a station and there's just a 1-car train. There's definitely also places in the country where you think, gosh, this place just needs more railways. When you look at an old map from pre-beaching times, and somebody actually sent us during our trip a map of the height of Britain's railways before Beeching came in with his axe, and it was literally doubled. The joke was, what we did 2,563 stations. I think at the peak pre-Beeching era, there were like 5,000 stations. So we joked about how it would have taken twice the amount of time had we been doing this back in the late 1950s, early 1960s. But I think the area where we noticed that the most was when we got to Lincolnshire. So we did Lincoln through to Skegness. There's this really strange bit of railway where the railway sort of comes up like this and then curves round on a really weird curve. And you think, why is there that curve in the middle of nowhere? It's because the railway used to carry on, and then the curve was then the branch down to Skegness, but the railway used to go up the coast. And we actually spoke to some people from Lincolnshire, so this isn't just me saying it, but some locals agreed. It sort of feels a bit cut off from the rest of the country. It has small trains and a sparse service. And we got this train out from Haven House one morning on the way back from Skegness, and it just sort of went along for like 20 minutes, not many intermediate stations, infrequent trains, and we sat there and we thought, crikey, if there's one county in England that needs more railways, it's Lincolnshire. And everybody that we've spoken to from Lincolnshire agrees with us. I would love Lincolnshire to have more railways, is what I'm saying.
Changing at Sleaford. We are in bad need of some tea or coffee. Very bad need. On the plus side, it's not raining today. 6th? Is it the 5th? Least used station in London. We're on the train. We came through Gordon Hill, and Vicky and I are making stupid gags. Like Vicky's like, "So, what do you think of Gordon Hill, Geoff?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's a really top bloke, right?" And this chap here in the next seat, Dominic, was
actually picked up to the bit where he said he stops you cheating on your wife, and I was like, "Sounds like my kind of guy."
And so Dominic's like, "What are you guys doing?" So I checked with Dominic. Now you're on the train going up to Hertford North because you can't drive anymore because you lost your license, Dominic.
Yeah,
let's not go into details on that.
Yeah, that's correct.
But you're forced to get the train, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't no longer drive. But what was interesting, we were just chatting and you were saying that you think that people are all too ready to complain when things go wrong. But people never remember, you know, the 9 out of the 10 journeys when the trains are on time. Is that how it feels?
True. Me personally, I use the train for meditation, chilling.
Use it for what?
Like playing a bit of chess, just having a read, rather than being in the car and be like, "Man, get I'm like, swear.
We'll have to beat that out.
But yeah,
so for you, it's like a chill out.
It's a chill out. I've got a 9-month-old daughter, so my life at home is pretty hectic. My life at work is pretty hectic. This is like
This is like an hour you get.
I used to have peace on the toilet. I now get it on the train.
We're approaching Wotton at Stone, and Joe Thomas on Facebook, hi Joe, got in touch to say that this was the filming location very near to the station of the 70s controversial film The Finishing Line, which is, it wasn't intended as a public information film, but it's been seen as that since, and it tells the story of the consequences of children playing on the railway tracks.
This is Will. Ignoring us. Oh, I see. Express edition. This is Will. Will's driving. Hi. And one of his children is awake, and another one of his children is less awake.
Thank you.
Someone's got to film. In the back. Magic. How's it going? Magic. We're going on a train. Hello again. Will's child is coming with us. We're just going to make the 1710. We're literally just going to make it. Thus endeth our day. Can I just say London tick?
Tick.
If you don't include the fact that Horsham and Leatherhead aren't in London.
When in Scotland, all the stations spent a week in Glasgow ticking off all the suburban lines. But whilst there, they also got to speak to the Executive Director of the Railway Heritage Trust.
Good morning. It's Thursday, the 10th of August. We're outside the wonderful Glasgow Central Station, and we are very lucky to be with Andy Savage. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning, Vicky. Nice to meet you.
And you. You are the Executive Director of the Railway Heritage Trust, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So tell us, what does that mean? What do you do, Andy?
Okay, well, I hope I go around and make people happy, usually by giving them money. We're a company, we're not a trust, funnily enough, we're not a charity, we're a company. We're sponsored by but not part of Network Rail, and also by Highways England, who look after the residual estate from the closed lines, and we give grants to help look after the heritage of listed buildings and listed structures and buildings and structures in conservation areas.
Fantastic. So as we've been travelling around, we've seen in almost every place we've been that the blue plaques that say Railway Heritage Trust, and also other sort of commemorative memorials to different events. Is that the kind of thing that you're responsible for?
Well, we do plaques on our bigger, more spectacular jobs. So the plaques are largely a side effect. What we basically do is putting money into restoring the building. So our budget is, in terms of the railway industry, it's pretty insignificant, but it's still £2 million a year, so it's not nothing. and we generally, most years, we spend 2 million and we draw in about another 2.5 million. So we actually get about 4.5 million quid's worth of work done on Network Rail's infrastructure every year.
So it really is, sounds like it's about keeping the heritage of these buildings at the forefront, about bringing the community in, and about keeping that feeling of where these buildings have come from, the history of the railway.
It's about finding a use for the building. So sometimes it's community, like Aberdour, sometimes it's railway, sometimes it's commercial. You've been to York?
Yes.
Have you been to the York Tap?
Yes.
Yes, that's one of ours. That was actually my idea, was to get Pivovar to do the York Tap. They've done a tap at Sheffield, which we've funded. They did York, and we've also funded the windows for them in the lodges at Euston. So it's a commercial business. They're there to make a profit, but we've improved the heritage features of the buildings that they work in.
Andy, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for meeting with us this morning. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure as well.
Whilst we're at Glasgow Central, we just wanted to say that if you sneak into the Grand Central Hotel, into its champagne bar, up on the first floor, then that has the view out on to Glasgow Grand Central Station. And it's a good view. Glasgow was one of my favourite weeks of the whole year. I've never really explored Glasgow much. I've been there, through there by car. I didn't realise, definitely for sure, how its suburban railway network, I think is almost second to London's. In London you have a very intense suburban railway network, and Glasgow was just like that. But one of the most beautiful, and I mean that quite sincerely, one of the most beautiful moments of the whole experience was any time that we engaged with the public, and we'd had our theme tune, which my good friend Stephen made for us. And he'd done various mixes for us. So throughout the series, we'd had like the main theme, and then we had like a piano version and like an orchestral version. And then very kindly he came up with, he made a PDF of like the score, because someone wanted to play it. And so he put into our shared Dropbox the All the Stations musical score. And so we're in Glasgow Central Station, and I realised one day, on about the third day in Glasgow, that they had one of those pianos, one of those, hey, anybody can pitch up. They got one in St Pancras as well, in various places. And suddenly I was like, I know, we should see if we can get some people to maybe come and play the piano.
She's doing it!
Give me about an hour and I'll have those 12 bars.
And on the day that some random dude, and I can't remember his name, I'm so sorry.
And a gentleman approached us.
Gave us some teas. He went, here, I know you're in a hurry, have some teas, and then he ran off.
And he handed us 2 cups of hot tea.
That was the day that we decided to do the piano thing. So at very short notice, we put a tweet out saying, if anybody can play the piano, rock up to Glasgow at 5 p.m. this evening. And about 3 or 4 people came down, including the guy that had given us tea that morning. And there was just this, it was just a beautiful moment where 2 of these guys, they sat down and I got my iPad out and I put the music on and they jammed the All the Station music. And I remember live streaming it on my phone at the time going, look what we're doing. And even one of the station staff, the Network Rail staff, came over and they were a little bit like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Using the public piano, which you've provided for us to have moments like this." And it was a great moment. And if I could relive any sort of non-train moment of the whole experience, it would be to have a little. It was like our own little rock concert gig, Glasgow Station. Does that sound too sad?
Whilst the series was produced for YouTube, TV and radio media outlets did get in touch, which in itself led to some strange adventures.
There is one thing we need to put the record straight on. May I put the record straight on something? May I? Thank you. We're going to call this the Peterborough incident.
I'm on the telly. How can you be there and also here at the what, dude? Weird. Good morning. Same T-shirt.
I don't think you've washed it.
I haven't washed it. No.
We were fortunate enough to generate a lot of publicity in the media, so the newspapers picked up on it. Ruth, thank you, Ruth, who worked so hard on the press side, and once we got in the papers, then the TV picked up on it, and so we were delighted when the BBC came out to do a package.
Geoff and Vicki in Starbridge on a Class 139 Parry People Mover. This looks fun. So I asked, can I join you? Sure, they said. Meet us at Westbury.
Upway and Weymouth.
Are we on the wrong platform here?
I think we were stood, was it Pusey? No, Bedwin. David Sletto, their arts correspondent, came out and he interviewed us on the platforms at Bedwin Station.
I am wondering what we're going to do. Yeah, I think I will be. There are so many places.
You've got nothing else going on in your life?
Well, no, it's pretty full. I have to go back to work.
And he asked us the question which you would naturally ask, knowing that we were a couple. He's like, well, what's it been like, you know, your relationship between the two of you? Have you got on the whole time?
But what about the people at the centre of this? There have been moments.
Two things. So straight away, I found myself quoting this a lot. There's a very famous quote from Ernest Hemingway. I'll quote it again now in case you don't know it. And his line was, "Do not travel with those you do not love. Fortunately, we're okay."
That's sweet.
And then I turned to Vicki and I said, well, apart from that time at Peterborough. And David looked at Vicki and went, the time at Peterborough. Should we talk about the Peterborough incident?
The Peterborough incident. We can talk about the Peterborough incident.
And at this point, something rather strange happened because Vicki thought I was referring to another incident because we'd actually been to Peterborough twice. And the first time we'd been to Peterborough, it's actually the day that we come through Hinckley, the day that we discovered Vicki Explores. We then later got the train to Peterborough. And the weird thing is, I can't remember why if you was to ask me, but we had this massive argument at Peterborough. I think I'd fallen asleep on the train, I'd woken up, I was a bit grumpy, and we got to Peterborough, and Vicki said something maybe a bit curtly, and I just took it the wrong way, or I was being an idiot, and I took it the wrong way. And we sort of had this massive argument on the platform at Peterborough, and our next train wasn't for 55 minutes. And let me tell you people, for the whole of 55 minutes at Peterborough, we didn't talk to each other. We sort of went to separate ends of the platform. So we had this major falling out. But I can't even remember what it was about. That was the weird thing. But 2 weeks later, we'd gone back through Peterborough on a completely separate time and day, and our train in had run a few minutes late, and we missed the connection. And I got very angry, and there's this video of me going, oh,
that's it. Seriously?
A missed train. Geoff takes it very seriously.
We've missed the train. And Vicki went, quite brilliantly, she went, Geoff, no worries, I'll just go and visit Peterborough Cathedral. Let's turn this negative into positive. Now we've got time to go and check out Peterborough Cathedral. And I went, right, you go and do that. I'll get the teas in and the sandwich. And so she went off and did Peterborough. And so when David asked us about had we gotten on the whole time, Vicki referenced, forgetting that we'd had this major falling out the first time at Peterborough, she went, oh, there was that time at Peterborough, thinking where we missed the train and I was a bit like angry. And she told him about the Peterborough incident. And I stood there on the platform at Bedwin going, no, that's not what I was, but it was because he had a big camera, and Vicky, I didn't want to say, Vicky, you're wrong. I sort of let it go, thinking, oh, well, he probably won't use this. But when the package went out on the BBC, he made a big fuss about the Peterborough incident.
I lost track of time inside the cathedral.
And I remember thinking, no, this is wrong. This is not what I was referring to. And then the Peterborough Cathedral saw the package go out on the BBC and tweeted us going, oh, we heard we might have been the source of your argument, because he'd made it look that we'd missed the train because Vicky had gone to Peterborough Cathedral, but that wasn't the case, and so it was misreported. And later on in the trip, my friend Ian, an author who we interviewed, gave us a copy of his latest book, and he gave it to us in a Peterborough Cathedral carrier bag, saying, I heard you had an incident at Peterborough, but there wasn't, it was fine. Peterborough Cathedral, you're fine, you did not cause any argument, I promise you.
David Sillito, BBC News, at a railway station somewhere in Britain.
I can't do this documentary without mentioning Karura Station. It would be wrong of me if I were to not mention it. Even though I feel like I've mentioned it a lot, it would be fair to say that before we even set out on the trip, I knew that we were going to spend the night at Karura Station because there was a B&B, an Airbnb.
Made it to Karura. It's a small, teeny lifetime ambition. Thanks to Stuart.
It's busy, man.
It is busy.
Part of me was just focused on, it'll be great when we get to Scotland and go to Karura. I'd always wanted to go there. I'd been on when I was 18 years old, back in 1990, I'd been on a driving holiday of Scotland. And it was strange because back then, I'm not a train spotter, I don't write down the numbers, but I'm fascinated by the infrastructure, by the men that built the viaducts, or the permanent way crew that laid the metals through mountains, or just scheduling how you connect up services, or in single track lines like Karura is, how do you make sure that there's a regular pattern of trains going in both directions.
We made it to Karura. The ultimate tick.
And Karura, it's in the remote highlands. It's a totally unique, out-of-the-way station. There's no public access except by railway. They'd used it as a famous filming location for train spotting. I really wanted to go to Karura. There was the 18-year-old inside of me really wanted to go to Karura, and so it became a bit of an obsession to be like, we have to spend the night in Karura and make a big fuss about this.
So I thought we were staying in that building over there. This is not the case. Walk around and we're actually staying in the old signal box. So this is our room in here.
Are we letting them in?
Well, just for a second. This is where we're staying tonight with all our stuff.
Hot water bottles?
They do have hot water bottles, but come with me. The thing you need to see really is actually down here. Up here. And this is inside the old signal box. So you can see clearly here, you're in the cabin where there would have been the levers and whatnot, and it's now been turned into like a little attic den, a little snug, where they said we can hang out later with views in all directions, 360-degree views, and it's nothing short of stunning. It's absolutely nothing short of stunning. It's the best station ever. But I kind of knew it was going to be. Come and stay here. It's awesome.
And at the end, with just over 100 days spent travelling on 620 trains, what did they consider was the best thing about the railway network?
If I were to sum up Britain's railways, I would say, I think I mentioned it earlier, there's the commuter railway and then there's the off-peak leisure railway.
I think more... is there anything I'd like to see less of? No, I think there isn't anything I'd like to see less of, because I think we just need more. We need more railways, we need more services, we need more opportunities for people to travel.
What the off-peak leisure railway allows you to do is have an adventure. And this became sort of a tagline, which we then used. There was a day where we were in Manchester with our friend Carl, and we stopped at, I think it was Urmston station.
Bye! There were some nice people that we met. Bye! Goodbye, Northern Train!
To Urmston.
So I feel like we missed out on the cafe. Oh, hang on, train. Urmston has an amazing pub called the Steam House.
Are we allowed to have a drink on the job? I don't think we are. I don't think we are.
By our own rules, I think we can.
And me and Carl and Vicki sat there, thanks Carl, because I think he was key to it. We were just chatting about, he was excited for us about our adventure, he might have even said the phrase, it's great you guys are having an adventure. And this phrase, have an adventure, sort of came out. And it was at that moment there I went, you know what, we should, this isn't just about us. We're engaging with other people on social media. We should get other people out on railways to have their own adventure. And it was at that moment I went, right, let's record a video right now. And we got the camera out and we made an impromptu video. And we were so like, guys, we picked a weekend in August. We went, this is the weekend that we want you all to go out and have your own adventure, and email us in your pictures and tell us where you're going. And then we made a video about it. And it was a beautiful thing. And we had, I'm sorry if we didn't, I really am sorry if we didn't include your picture that you emailed in your own adventure, because we got just so many. And it was quite humbling I opened up my email that morning and the emails were like boom, 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 boom. It was like, whoa. And they all had attachments from where everybody in their hundreds were sending in pictures, not just in Britain, but around the world as well. And it was a great thing. So I think every year we should have on all the stations have an adventure day. So we might do it again in 2018, where we're like, okay guys, this is this year's date to go off and have your own adventure. Let's make that an annual tradition.
What would be good to have less of would be the negativity around the railways. And yes, it's not a flawless system. It has issues and problems, as all businesses do, all transport networks, all transport services do. The roads, the rivers, you know, they all have their problems and barriers that they have to overcome.
Welcome to Kettering, where it's raining and our train isn't going to Corby. Apparently all trains to Corby have been cancelled for the next few hours. There's an obstruction on the line, so I think a tree has come down on the line towards Corby. Corby, we're going to have to come back to you another day, and that is awkward.
But very often I feel that the way in which the railway is discussed and described, even within communities of people who are enthusiasts or who are passionate about it, they often talk about the railways as the good old days, or what was pre-beaching, or what went before. The railways have their flaws, but they are brilliant, and they work so well within the parameters that we have, and there are so many opportunities to improve it. It would be great to see more people sharing more positive stories about the railways. If you're travelling on the railways and you have a good journey, you never really shout about it. You never see tweets people going, the 12:52 from Waterloo was on time and I got to work okay. You never see that. You always see people sending messages about it was delayed, or the carriage door shut on me and I couldn't get on my train, or you always hear the negative stories. And so it would be wonderful to have more positivity, or more of those positive experiences that people have showcased more, so that people realise that there is a good opportunity for them to travel.
Railways let you go out and have an adventure. That's the great thing. You can go out, you can see something new, you can meet new people, you can make a friend, you can have an experience, and just have a brilliant day out. And that's why railways are the best. So it's been put to us as a question, if this were to occur again in 20 years' time, what would we hoped would have changed, and what would we have liked to have stayed the same?
So what we've done, and what we hoped we would do, is create a snapshot of what Britain's railways are like in 2017. If someone, doesn't have to be us, if someone was to do the same journey again in, say, 20 years' time, I hope some things would be the same, and I hope some things would be very different.
And my answer to that would be stick around, because maybe we'll be able to tell you ourselves. Because I think at the time when we did this, we thought, wow, this would be amazing, we'll never do this again, or we'll move on and do something else. But it did come up in conversation the other day, maybe a bit like they do with the national censorship, which is every 10 years. What if all the stations happened every 10 years?
Things like where you have single track services, whilst the great thing about that is you get to see this token exchange, you get to see this sort of nostalgic perspective of the railways, and you're reminded of the history of Britain's railways. Those places, the services are dominated by those physical constraints.
There is part of us, myself and Vicki, where we thought, yeah, we could do this again in 2027, thanks, maths. I think we could do it again.
I would hope that in areas where it's needed, you can double the track or put in a new line to provide better services for those areas, to allow people living in and around those communities to have more opportunities to travel, not just further away to different parts of the countries, but also within their own regions as well, and that just provides people with more opportunities for work, or to see friends and families that they don't often regularly get to see, or in some people's cases it could be access to medical treatment at different hospitals that they otherwise wouldn't be able to access.
I don't know, would you like us to do it again in 10 years and do a comparison? What's changed between now and then? Obviously, we're not going to live forever, but wouldn't it be great if we started a tradition somewhere in England, or Scotland or Wales, went, right, the year's ending in 7, off we go, it's time to do all the stations. I'd like to do it at least one more time in 2027. I don't know about 2037 though. I think I'd be too old by then. It would be exhausting on these poor old bones, but stick around.